Okay, we've got lots of people joining, so I think we can make a start. So hi everyone, I'm Abigail. I'm the Principal Delivery Manager for Wagtail at Torchbox, and I am delighted to introduce your speaker for this session, Mariana from Lincoln Loop, who's going to tell you about redesigning and refactoring Wagtail components. If you do have any questions as we go, then pop them in the Q&A and we'll try to get to them at the end. But I'm going to hand over to you, Mariana.
Thank you, Abigail. Hey, everyone. Nice to meet you virtually. I hope you're all there, though I can't see you. I'm Mariana, and I'm here to talk about how to refactor Wagtail components. So that's me. I work at Lincoln Loop. I'm based in Rio, in Brazil. Fun fact, I actually graduated in history. I have this past in the humanities, though it didn't last too long as a teacher. And I practice aerial acrobatics. That was my birthday there. I work at Lincoln Loop. We're a software development shop. We will work mostly with Django, and we have been working a lot with Wagtail recently. We've been giving a lot of thought into what makes a good Wagtail website. If you hang out a little later today, we have Mike also talking about what makes good Wagtail websites. So I'm going to talk about refactoring blocks in Wagtail, but first let's talk about how we usually structure our Wagtail websites. So we have basically two kinds of blocks. We split them basically into two categories. The first one is the section level blocks. It's basically the first level of blocks that you see on a website. They will usually be full width blocks and that will semantically in the HTML be a section. So if you scroll through a web page, those will be the big chunks of content that you see full width composing the website. Those are heroes, card lists, banners, big chunk of text, basically everything that goes full width. So this is an example of a very simple Wagtail page that has, when you click to add a new block, that's what you would see. So an intro, which would be a hero, generic section, a banner, a notification. So those are examples of first level blocks that we usually build for websites. And those first level blocks are usually composed of smaller inner blocks, which basically correspond to elements or HTML tokens. That could be anything from images and texts and buttons to more slightly more complex structures as cards, and those will be composed of even smaller bits like headings, buttons, text, images, etc. So when you're building those smaller bits of content, those elements, you will usually have the fields there that correspond to the content itself. So we have the example of a button that is that has a text, a link, and we're leaning towards this pattern of having all of our blocks having those settings which control the presentation of the component. So you can have a theme for the button, primary, secondary. You can have it have an icon, etc. But how do you decide what goes into what, and how small are the small bits that compose those bigger blocks? I could obviously give an entire, well, maybe not me, but someone could give me, could give you an entire talk about how to decide how you compose all of those pieces into the real blocks that you will have on a page. But in general, we try to lean towards having the most simple and basic decisions to your editors. So unless you have the person editing your content is a very technical person, and or if they don't need a lot of control over what's the layout they're building, you want to give them the least options to choose from as possible. Because too many options can be overwhelming. If you have a huge list of settings and you don't know which each of them mean, you have to make a ton of decisions to just put a simple card on the screen. Even if you have a bulletproof design system, giving too much control for your editors can lead to broken visuals, because you cannot account for all the possible combinations of things that you can put on the screen. Of course, the code gets more complex. And above all, your editors should be thinking about their content, not about the presentation. So here on the right, I show you an example of things that you probably don't want to do with your CMS, which is a container where you can control the padding, the theme, the dividers, the number of columns that have in it. And that container have so many elements that can go inside of them that it's basically impossible to test all the possible combinations of things that will go inside that container. And it will probably lead you to making mistakes and building basically ugly websites. But that's not the theme of the talk, but there's just the thought that we want to stick to when we want to think about refactoring components. So if you see yourself building your blocks one-to-one to your design system, it's probably a bad sign. It means that you haven't put enough decisions into your block architecture. And of course, it depends on who are the people who are building your system. So usually more guardrails will prevent broken layouts, but there will always be that marketing person that says, yeah, can I make that button red? Can I put that extra thing on the right? So you will always have to weigh between those guardrails and the things that are asked from you. So yeah, some of the restrictions may frustrate your stakeholders, and you will have to make those decisions with them. But at the same time, too many variations will be overwhelming to editors. So instead of having a ton of settings in the same block, you might want to split that existing block into a different one. At the same time, if you have too many similar blocks, it can be also confusing because the person doesn't know which one to choose from. So let me talk about our rebranding story. At Lincoln Loop, we had a static website, very small, a simple website to talk about the company, what we do, present our services. And this site has always been edited by technical people who could just write HTML directly. And at some point, we had a non-technical person that needed to edit the content on the website. So we built them very quickly a Wagtail website. We basically got most of the existing pages that needed to be edited by that person, put them one-to-one in Wagtail. Since we knew this would be throwaway work, we basically created the blocks exactly as they already existed on the HTML that we had, just to give them quick access to do that. But at the same time, we had a parallel work going on of rebranding our entire company. And a part of that rebranding was a new design system. So basically, as soon as that Wagtail site was ready, it was already time to refactor it and make it compatible with our new design system. So the heading component was one of the examples of how that refactoring went on. Now that we have a nice design system, we want to apply it to everything. We created this heading block that has the main heading, an optional accent text, an optional subheading text. It can be left or right aligned, and you can choose the heading level. So H1, H2, etc. And the proportions of the text sizes will match depending on the level you choose from. Cool. And now we want this heading block to be part of all of our section blocks that have headings, of course. So we have some, we had a few of those examples of those section level blocks that had headings, which were just one rich text field. And now we want them to have that entire heading block that you can compose. Cool. But that obviously, once you make that change, it will change the JSON structure of your string fields data. Right? Before, in this example, we had a heading that was a string, and now your heading is represented by a dictionary, and each of the keys will be strings. That data has to change on the database for your content to be there. So if you're refactoring something that doesn't have content, it's easy. You don't have to take care about this, but of course, you're usually refactoring something that already has content, that's already in production, and you have to keep that production content in place. You don't want the person to have to rebuild the entire page from scratch. So how do you do that? So ideally, you do a data migration. In that case, I was too lazy. I had access to a production database. I opened a Django shell, copied the JSON from, there were basically 2 or 3 pages that had those blocks, copied the JSON from from the shell, edit them on my text editor, paste it back on the shell, save the page. No one has to know what happened. Cool. But usually that's not what you would do in a production situation. So let me give you another example of what we did recently. So at the time, I didn't know about those migration operations that Wagtail offer. If you search the documentation, it will be under advanced topics under stream field migrations. It would have been great to know that at the time. Maybe I would have been less lazy and would have written a real migration operation. And there's a list of all the operations you can do that are ready for you there. But in our case, since that operation is something that's happening on a deeper level inside the block structure, so it's not the first child of our stream fields, none of those custom operations would do the trick, or at least I couldn't find out how to use any of them in that situation. Maybe some of the developers will tell me that I did something wrong, and it was in fact possible to use them directly. So I'll give you an example of how this should happen. So in another project we're working on, we just refactored this button component. You see that new feature from Wagtail where you have this collapsible inner block that you can put that little cog icon there. Looks pretty. You can go directly edit your content and don't have to think about the settings right away. So we did that refactoring where we moved those 4 fields into the settings inner block. This is how our button block looks like. So we have a structure block for the button settings where you have the theme, the icon position, and the button block includes the button settings. So now I have to go through all my blocks that have buttons, and I have to change the structure of those JSONs. So before, if you look at on the left, the buttons are a list of dictionaries. That dictionary has a value. The value had theme, external center, etc. And now some of those fields have to move inside a new dictionary called settings, and they have to live inside there. How do we do that? We get into the code. If you look on the right, on that transform button list method, we're basically going over a list of buttons. For each button, I get the value, and I create a new settings dictionary inside that value, where I put the theme icon, etc., inside of those settings. And I have to do that for each button on my tree. So on the left, you can see that we walk through the entire JSON from our stream fields. I look for the buttons list, and whenever I found the buttons list, I transform those buttons. And I have to do this operation both for the intro and the section blocks. those are the main section type blocks that have buttons inside of them. So on the section, for example, so on the intro, the buttons are first level block. On the section, for example, I have them inside contents that have media content, that has content, that has button, that has button. So you have to know every place, basically every place in that you have a button, and your migration has to be able to go through the entire tree to find that button. Of course, that only works because all of the components that includes buttons have used the same name for our buttons list. If they use different names for that, you would have to adapt the migration to find them on the right place. So if you find yourself in a situation when you have to migrate data, best thing is if from the start you're very consistent with how you name your blocks, and especially since those more elemental blocks like buttons, headings, images, the smaller bits that usually go inside other things. If from the start you have good naming conventions, it will make a lot easier when you have to migrate and find them, those elements inside your huge JSON blob. And sometimes, like in that case, it might be just easier to do it manually. It will probably take you less time to edit a JSON in your text editor than to write an entire data migration for that. But don't tell clients about this. Another option, if you don't have the possibility to do the entire data migration, is to deprecate blocks. So you can, for example, flag a block as deprecated with the meta option. You can put an icon, a warning icon. You can put some help text there. You can change the label of your block to indicate to editors that they shouldn't be using that block anymore. And you can even go further and add validation to your block that will prevent your page from being saved if that block is included on the page. So this won't change past existing data, but if someone goes there and tries to edit that page, they will have no option but to change that block for something else if they want to save that page. Another step that you can take is to deprecate entire pages. So instead of mix and matching your new refactored blocks with your old blocks, you may want to create entirely new page types and deprecate your old page types. Again, you will not delete existing content, but if you set your parent page types to an empty list, that page type will disappear from the editing interface, and no one will be able to create new pages from that page type. So, but in the end, it's all about content governance. In a website that already has content, that already have people writing that content, you will need to communicate with those people what to do about that old content that has to be changed. ideally, you have structured all your blocks so perfectly that only the developers have to know what's happening. You write your data migration, everything changes, and your editors don't need to know about that. But that is probably never the case in real life. So if you have a new pretty design that you're launching, first thing you have to do is letting your editors know that things changed. Give them instructions on how to build the new things. I like especially to create example pages where I write on the text what each block is. So I add an intro and I choose a heading that says this is an intro. Then I add a section. I have a heading that says this is a section. This is a section heading. This is a button, etc., etc. So I basically try to create pages that guide the person into knowing exactly what they're looking at. So after your editors know what they're dealing with, we have to have a transition plan. So you would need to query your database with all the pages that have old content that has to be changed. You have to instruct your editors how they go there and change to the new system. We'll probably have to establish a deadline for them to do that. Then you have to verify that they actually did it and there's no page missing from it. And once you have all your content transitioned, you're able to delete the legacy code. But yeah, sometimes the easiest thing is to create everything new, rebuild everything on the new system, and then you can swap the old slugs by the new slugs. So for example, you have a landing page on a node page type, you create an entire new landing page, and on the launch day, you write a data migration that swaps their slugs. So you get the old slug into the new pages slug, and when anyone clicks a link, they'll land on the new page. And sometimes a transition is just not possible at all. Sometimes the changes are too radical and we just don't get to proper data migration. In that case, we can always rely on raw HTML blocks. You can get the old rendered page, stuck it in a raw HTML block, and just move on with your new content. That's the more radical situation, but it's also possible. But that's our experience. I would like to know what everyone else's experience is. What are your strategies? I suppose there are a lot of lessons to learn and a lot of better strategies that other people use. So I will wait for you to pop your questions on the Q&A. And that's it. Thank you for listening and get in contact if you like to. Looks like we have questions. Let me see.
Thanks,
My
Marielle. Yeah, there's quite a few questions. We are unfortunately at time though, so I encourage
Oh,
everyone to add any questions that they've got into that lobby chat and we can carry on any conversations going on over there. But yeah, that was brilliant. Thank you so much for that. And if everyone would like to make their way back to the lobby for the next talks, that would be great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.